Good Thursday afternoon, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, coming on the air for a tornado warning for Flagler County until about 3 o'clock. We need to get folks into shelter immediately. Some radar indicated rotation here. I know we were only expecting tornadic weather here on this Thursday, just like last Saturday, but this storm developing a hook here and has some rotation west of Interstate 95. We need to get folks into shelter immediately in toward Flagler County. Again, a tornado warning in effect right now until 3 o'clock. So let's go ahead and take shelter. This is just north of Bunnell, where we have the green with the winds going toward the radar in Jacksonville and the red winds going away from it. As we look here for any type of debris, it's hard to see because we're far enough from the radar where it have to be, we're so far that it would have to be a pretty significant tornado, which I doubt we would have. And then we got that kind of spin, and we got the red box, and maybe slightly weaker that latest scan, but it's still holding together pretty tight. If this continues to hold together here, it's going to be crossing I-95 right around State Road 100, and then that means it will be, getting pretty close to the Flagler Beach area here over the next little bit. So we need to go and get folks into shelter. Again, a tornado warning for portions of Flagler County until 3 o'clock here. Again, a potential tornado in our southeasternmost county here. So again, folks need to take shelter immediately here in toward parts of Flagler County. I know this is a situation that hook looks a little bit more well defined now. As we get closer to the coast, you think, you would think, one would really think that this would have a chance to get tighter here. So we need to be aware of that because sometimes there's a little bit more of the parameters in play. And we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of Hurricane Idalia. This has nothing to do with the tropics here. This was not an organized threat today. This is a surprise. I was watching it here in the Weather Center. I, saw a little rotation. I'm thinking, wow, this looks interesting. And we had the special weather statement. And they're, saying, well, we've got to be ready to get on. And all of a sudden, the red box came. A tornado warning. So that's what we have here this afternoon for parts of Flagler County. The green and red here for your wind mode doesn't look maybe even as impressive as the scan before. That hook sure is there with that spin, and we're far enough from the radar. I think I would keep this tornado warning in play here until we get a better handle. Maybe we start to see some weakening, and then, okay, we would be okay. But right now, we just got an update on this tornado warning. At 2:35, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located in the Palm Coast vicinity. The storm will be, and it's near Palm Coast and Bunnell about 9, and Flagler Beach, it'll be near there in about 15 to 20 minutes. Beverly Beach also under this tornado warning, giving you to take shelter immediately here. Right now we have a tornado warning for portions of Flagler County. We're always on for a tornado warning storm within the 62 counties here. Just need to be really mindful of what's going on. I know we're in Bradford County watching this, but down in Flagler County, there's a tornado warning right now. I know, pretty surprising here because we don't even have that much on the radar otherwise. We're going to have more moisture in the days to come. As I broaden the view, we have some scattered little storms here. But overall, nothing too impressive. But down in Flagler County, we have a potential tornado. Again, we have a tornado warning for portions of Flagler County. This could be getting near I-95 over the next little bit. Again, take those tornado precautions into your room, away from windows. Just get as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet, football helmet, or baseball helmet, something like that here. I know it's probably about school dismissal time down there in this area, so that's going to make things kind of tricky as we're looking there, into our Flagler County. Folks, they might just need to be held here a little bit longer, because don't want them out on the road here in a potential tornado. Let me see what time, there's a high school there on State Road 100 as you're in that area. Let me just go ahead and see here. I want to double check some stuff. So yeah, the Flagler Palm Coast High School is the one that I'm talking about here. And what time do they get out? Let me go ahead and check the dismissal times because this is going to make things kind of tricky. Okay, it looks like they're supposed to get out maybe here, and I'm pulling it up. This is from a website, maybe 2:50. That sounds about right. I was just over at the beach a few weeks ago, seeing that school zone there, a couple weeks ago as we were looking at things. And it's a situation where we just need to make sure people are taking precaution here instead of, being dismissed only 10 minutes away from dismissal time. This is headed right in that direction, right there near where that school is. This is headed right toward, again, Flagler Palm Coast High School. Again, a potential tornado. We need to get folks into shelter. Again, a very tricky situation as we're tracking things. Again, we have that radar indicator rotation. It's not real tight, but with this being as far from the radar as it is, with that rotation being there and the hook being there, I would keep this all the way until I got off the coast if I was a weather service in Jackson, unless I'm really, maybe, having a lot of spotters out there, which you probably wouldn't really have in a situation like this anyway. There are some traffic cameras that I'll try to pull up in a moment. I'm going to check the Melbourne radar for a kind of a second opinion on the rotation. Sorting on that too. I mean, that's showing about 10,000 feet up or so. Let me sort off the Duval. The Duval radar is about 5,000, and let's see, that just tightened up 6,000 feet up. That just tightened up, guys, right over, right over State Road 100. And it looks like that's showing a little bit more on the east side of Bunnell. So as we're tracking things, the angle on this here, that latest scan, as you see, it's kind of going a little bit more southerly. Honestly, the way that just kind of switched, you see us on the southern fringe of the polygon. They may have to issue another tornado warning a little bit here, in that it would have to be, let's go ahead and just real quick, let me go ahead and take off the SPW here, the special weather statement, well, the SWS, I guess is what I should call that here, as we're looking at things, as we're looking here. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. We had that rotation. This is north of DuPont. So you see that they could issue another warning for parts of Flagler. Could the weather service in Jacksonville, but then the office in Melbourne would have to issue for northern Volusia, which is just outside of the area. But this is in Flagler. All the way down here is Flagler. That's our area. But when you look here, it cuts off into Volusia down here. And there's a chance that it may be kind of slipping south here a little bit based on some of the angles that I'm seeing here on the Doppler perspective. East side of Bunnell, so the schools around there, maybe impacted. This looks like a more wooded area, though, before it starts to get into some homes here. This mapping here, as we're looking, the topography could be a few years old, so you got to keep that in mind, and that there's probably more growth. There's a lot of growth here, some of these different areas, but as we're tracking things, again, a potential tornado here, as we're tracking things in the north parts of Flagler County, so need to get into shelter immediately. We have a potential tornado on the east side of Bunnell right now and toward Flagler County, so I just want to go ahead and get into shelter here. Get into shelter, interior room away from windows. Interior room away from windows. Let me go ahead and see if I can get some traffic cameras up, guys. Let me see if it's it's pointing more north. The one there at 95. Let me see. This one north or west. We'll pull it up. It's not really showing, really clear angle. I do see a backup on the interstate. I don't know if it's necessarily because of this, because it's not, the rotation isn't over the interstate yet. But we'll go ahead and see the traffic camera here. You see, it definitely looks like a slow go. I mean, this time of day, getting toward Labor Day weekend, that may just be part of it. But again, we're just continuing to track this. Again, yes, we're, live here on this August 28, 2025 for a tornado warning. Out of the blue, probably even more so in some ways than I went on Saturday, because we hadn't had any storm coverage in our area here today. We, did see the rotation, unlike the other one, which just kind of popped up. I was watching this one here, a little bit more carefully, because I saw a little hook on it. It was a little bit more, just a rogue here, renegade, as we're tracking things. So it's catching my eye a bit here in the weather center. But yeah, slow go here. So obviously if a tornado were to cross the interstate, that would not be ideal. But you can't necessarily see anything from this angle. It'd probably be a pretty weak tornado if we had it, though. This is an unusual situation in that, again, it is by itself. So, and there are some rotational parameters. I was just looking at that right before we had that warning issued. There are some supercell composite values here in the vicinity. So we got to be really careful here. Again, this is a very unusual. I mean, you had my Dawn and Duval that, is a little bit more, there's a little bit more of a, history for stuff like that, spinning up when you have a bunch of storm axing with boundaries. This is more rogue here. This is very unusual, to be quite honest. This is something I don't recall much of here in all these years, to have one like this kind of by itself here in late August, but we have it. It looked like it was a little weaker than that latest scan on the volume scan here, but it's north of DuPont. There's still something there. So we got to continue to take tornado precautions. There could be debris in there. If there was, that'd be serious, because we're up over 6,000 feet here at the scan. So they indicate a pretty significant tornado. So I kind of doubt it's debris. It'd be more likely we'd have an EF0, EF1, because if we had debris on here from that height, you'd be getting to something stronger. But this is by itself, so it's not a really zero chance here. And that, it's something that could happen. Unlikely, but could be happening there and toward that area. So, non-zero chance of that. Headed right there toward, it's headed right there near the Palm Coast Flagler County Airport, based on some of the latest scans. Probably looking a little south of the high school that I was referencing there a moment ago, but you're still in the warning. You got to take precautions, obviously, because there could still be a little displacement on the radar. Flagler Palm Coast High School. As we're looking, it's probably going to south of that and heading more toward the airport. So let me go ahead and pull this on up here. The 88-degree number is where Palm Coast Flagler County Airport here is. So you see the yellow, that's the rotation. You see that path, and that path is taking it more toward that area. I mean, they're not that far from each other, obviously, but as we're tracking, again, we have a tornado warning in Flagler County this afternoon, that yellow area. This is very much by itself. We have a few other little storms. We need to watch some of these because they're so by themselves. It's just bizarre. You don't generally see popcorn stuff and then a tornado warning. This is not what happens around here. This is a bizarre situation, but the instability is there, over 4,000 joules per kilogram. You have some supercell composite as well, as we're tracking things here this afternoon. So, I know the barometric pressure down there, 1,018 millibars. So, 1,016 where we're at here, East Historic. So, this is not the typical pattern for this, but we have a boundary. We have a boundary, and you can kind of see some of that here on the map, and sometimes weird things can happen with storm development. So, again, just continuing to keep you guys updated. We're going to have a lot more storm coverage in the days to come. It'll probably make it a little less likely to have stuff like this just popping up on us. But here we are. We had, because we have more storm acts in there. This is all kind of by itself, taking advantage of all the storm parameters here. Kind of a bizarre situation here in Flagler County. Again, this is not something we really had in the forecast for today. But here we are, a tornado warning for parts of Flagler County until 3 p.m. Moving east to maybe a little south. I mean, I would say southeast. The Weather Service says east, but let's say southeast. And they were going 10 miles an hour on the speed. Talking about areas around Palm Coast, but now on Flagler Beach here. So again, that's where we're at, north of DuPont as well. As we go ahead and keep looking to spin, let me take this off. So it looks like it's a pretty rural area there, but then it's coming up on some houses. Again, this is, this imagery is a few years old, so I'm sure there's been some more growth out here. But yes, we have a red box here on the screen. We have a tornado warning locally on this Thursday afternoon. Again, it's imperative for you guys to take those tornado precautions. Again, popping up here randomly like this. Some of these others are by themselves. We'll watch them, but they're not as favorable of an environment. That's a little bit of weak spin there east of Interlochen here. We'll watch it. It's kind of surprising. This is not what we were talking about here today, Roy. I mean, we get some of these, summertime, but we don't generally have it like this. More of it. This is more discrete, super sailor type of look here in terms of the storm acts, and they're continuing the warning here. Right on the edge of the box, by the way, so they may have to use another one down toward DuPont here. This is headed more right there, north side of DuPont right now. As we're tracking. Let me see where the airport is. There's the airport. So that spin on here is just south of there now. It keeps slipping south in the polygon. It keeps slipping south. At 247, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado is located near Bunnell, moving southeast at 15 miles an hour. So we're still watching this again. It's on the very southern part of the polygon with that rotation in there. Certain to also, at least from this angle, and maybe because it's further away, but it makes it look like it could be a little more rain wrapped at first there with the way the hook was. It was looking a little bit more like what you would see out there toward Midwest there with these storms that are a little more visible, but normally there are more rain wrapped around here. That's what you always got to kind of count on. That's what it looks like. It's at least from this angle. It may just be because we're getting further from the radar, but it makes them look here, and it may be becoming a little bit more rain wrapped. So again, we have a tornado warning for parts of Flagler County. Again, it's very important to take those tornado precautions. Again, we need to take those precautions immediately there in toward Flagler County, in our southeasternmost county here. Again, it's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family. We've been on for every tornado warning storm here, since late 2019 as we're looking, as we're tracking storms through our coverage area with the radar indicated rotation. That's where we're at right now. We're trying to keep you guys safe, obviously. We're trying to keep you guys safe in this type of situation. Again, I would not be surprised here if we get another tornado warning here. As we're tracking things, I'm going between some different radar scans here in toward the weather center. Again, we're trying to keep you safe. We're trying to keep you informed, obviously. Again, this popping up there in the word Flagler County. Again, a tornado warning in effect. Again, we're trying to just find out the very latest on what's going on here. Let me go ahead and see if we can find some more traffic camera looks. See if I can find one that's pointed at the sky a little bit more. Okay, this might be something here. Let's go ahead. It says it's looking northeast. Well, let's see here. So, if it's looking more northeast, this wouldn't be really where we're looking yet. But it may come into the frame eventually. But I'll go ahead and show it to you because further west on this shot, if it was turned that way, you might be able to get a better look here what's going on. But again, let me go ahead and pull this on up here. Again, we're tracking this, we're monitoring it here very carefully. You see the lower on the cloud structure there, but I don't think right in the prime viewing position to see something because the trees would have to be turned more more off to the left anyway as we're tracking things here. So I don't think we necessarily see it right now from this. Maybe later if it were to hold together. But let me go ahead and switch off of this. Again, believe it or not, there's a tornado warning right now and toward parts of Flagler County here. We're watching this rotation just north of DuPont there, that community in Flagler County. So again, we need to get folks into shelter. Again, a potential tornado in toward parts of Flagler County. Definitely some winds there, greens going toward the radar, reds going away from the radar there. Again, this is kind of popping on up here. Let me go ahead and zoom back out a bit. I'm going to switch to the other radar again. See some of that spin there. See some of that spin. Doesn't look, as tight there, but we're going to have to keep watching. I see there's now a special weather statement for parts of Putnam. Let me look at this one. Goodness gracious. We might get another tornado warning here. You got to be kidding me. This right here is all by itself as well. And they're issuing a statement because there's some rotation on that. They're west of Palatka now. So again, this is an odd situation here. A very odd situation, obviously, here on this Thursday afternoon. This may, require a tornado warning pretty soon in Putnam County with that spin there. This is bizarre, guys. I'm not sure. I haven't really seen something like this here that much over the years. This reminds me a little bit of what we had here and that was a little bit, we did have a marginal risk, a little bit more of a forecast, but it was just overwhelming. We had that risk about 18 months ago here, day where we had the hail here around Stark, but that did have a marginal risk, but we had way more storm accident than this. That was, something that was a surprise. This right here, just have a general thunderstorm risk here, and we have this spin. Honestly, the spin in Putnam County looks tighter now. We may get a tornado warning. Looks like just a little bit here of it being ahead of the storm accidents. That's something, so maybe a little bit, maybe not quite co-located yet. So that's something that may preclude the tornado warning for that area getting issued, but that spin is kind of popping up. Again, this here north of Corona here, so we have the tornado warning still. Again, we have this tornado warning. This is just west of I-95. It's moving very slowly, by the way, very slow. Again, only about 10 miles an hour. Again, with this tornadic situation here for parts of Flagler. Let me pull up the tornado safety tips full screen here. You just want to 630 building. Get as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Protect yourself from flying debris. Have that, at least have that bicycle helmet, football helmet, or baseball helmet ready to put on. If you don't want to just put it on right off, have that ready to put on. Have those shoes on, obviously, in case there's debris in the aftermath of a tornado, because you don't want to cut your feet up. So, again, we're just continuing to track this here this afternoon. I get a tornado warning for parts of Flagler County until 3 o'clock. Again, we have this rotation here. It's not quite as tight on this, but the wind's going toward the radar and toward Jacksonville. Wind's going away from the radar, and this rotation's almost getting out of the warning box, so it makes you wonder they're not going to continue this. They may not continue it unless, they go ahead and kind of start looking here. I know the rotation kind of here, but it's kind of riding here is more around DuPont, so I'm a little surprised, in a way, that they haven't issued another box here. They would have to issue another box anyway for past 3, but then I know the Melbourne office would be kind of ones, coordinating with them for Volusia. So if they're not going to issue maybe for Volusia right off, if they're saying they don't think it's tight enough, then maybe Jackson would want to issue another for Flagler. So, it's not kind of a situation here where we're kind of going, one office says one thing, one says the other. It's kind of tricky because this is the line here for the weather services per se, and that's also, Volusia's not our covered area, Flagler is, but Flagler's also down in here, and down in here where we're going to potentially watch this, kind of track. It's an odd movement. Back to that storm in Putnam, it is an interesting looking one. I mean, the one thing I will say is that's not co-located as much with the radar, in terms of the reflectivity mode, which can kind of, mean that it's a little bit displaced, but we're looking further away. Now that scan, that one's behind the other, so, right now it looks like it is co-located, but the other hadn't updated yet. Yes, RV there, storm relative velocity, but let's go ahead and pull back over here to the tornado warning we have right now and make it another one. That's why I'm switching to that area in Putnam with, I have some keen interest in that, but again, we have this tornado warning here in Flagler right now. Again, continuing to give you the updates. I'm going to put the special weather statements back on here. And yes, you'll see the one in Putnam. Okay, that scan is a little weaker. That's odd looking. These are some strange storms here, guys. This is not what you see around here. We have the boundary, though, and that can cause some strange things sometimes. With little spin, we have the instability, so really not supposed to get severe weather, though, based on any of the modeling. I mean, if we were to get it, it'd be severe thunderstorm warning stuff, not tornado warning stuff. But it can happen, I guess, It's just kind of more of a pattern in a way, though it's more random. It's mimicking, but it didn't have the exact ingredients. Not much of a temperature contrast, but, mimicking what we'd see later on, like in October or something, but with some of this tornadic potential. But you see some green and red here. That looked weaker. That looked quite a bit weaker on that latest scan. But we have another area on the backside, which, that's showing some decay. So that's good. But, it's still pretty strong looking. Still got to watch that very carefully. This is something that's not as predictable here as, some of our other setups. That's for sure. I'm just looking at some other storms here because as we go back down. This looks weaker now. You know, sometimes these storms, if they're not right on the boundaries for, the whole time, then once they kind of jump off the track, per se, the boundary, then maybe they lose that spin a little bit. So maybe that's what we're down with here, because with the overall atmosphere, as we're tracking things here, I know it's kind of an odd situation, so just bear with me. I'm trying to give you guys the latest. I'm just trying to keep you guys up to date, obviously. You know, what's going on. I'm just going between all of our different tools here in the toolkit. Very strange weather situation. That is for sure. You know, we're coming up on 3 o'clock, so they may go ahead, if, the way this is looking weaker, they may let this go here. You see the red box just went away, so that may be what they're going to do here, let this go for now, because the rotation has weakened there some. Haven't necessarily seen any storm reports here yet, but I'm going to look at some different things. We're going to stick with this a little longer, just in case here, just in case we get something. As we're tracking, different boundaries here involved. Just trying to keep you guys up to date here on what's going on. Okay, we do have a report of a little bit of hail. Let me go ahead and see that. Oh, we just got a warning for Putnam now, thunderstorm warning. So I'll see that here too in a second. Okay, so we have this storm where we had a warning in Flagler. There was hail, to 0.25 inches in diameter here as we were looking, as we were tracking things there. That was pea-sized hail reported in the Pine Lake section of Palm Coast. So that's something there where that is a situation where we had that indicated there around 2:40 p.m. So again, this tornado warning no longer in effect, but let me go ahead and see here what we might have. Bear with me. Just trying to give you guys the very latest here on the overall situation. See if there's any reports here on some other like Facebook groups. By the way, they're going with a special weather statement there for Flagler Beach, some of those other areas, and some areas we're talking about how it's sunny there. Which again, that's not normally, what we're down with in our severe situations. Somebody was saying how, just looking through some Facebook comments on a Flagler weather Facebook group here. Somebody talked about how it's sunny around Bunnell, just a little while ago. That's how supercells kind of are, which we don't generally deal with around here. So this is bizarre, but again, as we're tracking things, as we're looking at things, let me go ahead and look at the severe thunderstorm warning now for Putnam County. They did not put a tornado possible tag on here, which is good. So the rotation, maybe not as tight, obviously, as what we were indicating. It was weakening some on that. But Central Putnam at 3 o'clock, a severe thunderstorm was located near Hollister, 7 miles west of Palatka, moving southeast at 15 miles an hour. Palatka, Interlochen, East Palatka, Orange Mills, Barden, as well as Hollister, Satsuma, San Mateo, Willaca, and Caraway. So, again, that's, what we're looking at there in the north parts of Putnam County. By the way, I know there are some college football games tonight down north central Florida, down in Orlando and Tampa. We'll hope the weather doesn't interfere with those. I mean, let me go ahead. We have our concerns about Saturday, obviously. that we've talked about. But let me go ahead and see what I can do in terms of some of this modeling, because we have those games down there tonight, down in Tampa. It's going to be USF and Boise State. That's at 5:30, so only a couple hours away. Top 25 Boise State coming into town down there. So that's kind of a storyline, to monitor in terms of the weather down there. I mean, UCF, they're playing, I believe, this Jacksonville State. Yeah, that's at 7 o'clock. So the one in Tampa's more, a game that, has more national attention. But so that's the 6 o'clock forecast modeling. So that shows, at least off of that, less concerned for Tampa. I'll go back an hour. You never know, but more concerned for Orlando, maybe for a delay down there. And you still see times in the southeast areas holding on even then. So I don't know if the models are handling this all that great. This is not something we generally see around here with this pop-up, rotational accent here with these little storms by themselves. So let's go to that storm in Putnam again on the velocity. So this is the reflectivity. There's some hail in here potentially, and there's still some rotation as well. Honestly, it doesn't look quite as displaced here as it once did. Not quite enough for a tornado warning, but they may put that tornado possible tag back in there as we're tracking things here. When I say the back end, they actually didn't have it in, but we had the rotation. In my mind, we had one, but we didn't actually have a tornado possible tag here. We had the tornado warning there toward Flagler County as we were tracking. That's expired, so right now we're down to a severe thunderstorm warning for Putnam for a different rogue and discrete storm. So again, we're continuing to watch this here near State Road 100 as we're looking, as we're tracking things. But really, if you want to get more precise about it, this is, right on State Road 20. Not far from State Road 100, but it's a little south of it. But let's just say State Road 20 would be the better landmark here for this as we're giving you guys the latest. So, more there, not as much the road there from Putnam Hall to Palatka as it is the road from Interlochen to Palatka. So, okay, that latest scanner rotation faded some as we go, but to the debris tracker, I didn't see much there. Again, we have the severe thunderstorm warning for Putnam. We did have a tornado warning for this storm in Flagler. I know the Melbourne office, you see an advisory for Volusia. That's where that's headed now. It looks like, the way the angle is on this. Let me take the super off here, because that was, the severe thunderstorm warnings for Putnam. Let me go ahead here and look and track things. That definitely looks like weaker than it did. You see that velocity there in northern Volusia County now. That's moving out of our area here in short order. But right now, still about to cross 95 there. We're crossing 95 with that spin. I mean, obviously part of the storm's crossing in Flagler, but let me go ahead and see what we have here. Let me go ahead and see what we have. Again, we're sticking with things, mainly for the Putnam storm, because there's a severe thunderstorm warning. We'll watch that and we'll evaluate to see, if eventually we can just kind of wrap it up. But I want to watch that a little longer. We'll watch this one too, but this is kind of getting out of our viewing area here, and it doesn't have a warning anymore. But warning Putnam has a severe thunderstorm warning. So, again, we're going to look at that here in just a moment again, but I'm just continuing to kind of look at things here. Let me get my bearings a little bit here. I have them, and that traffic camera isn't working. Okay, it was a perfect spot for a traffic cam, but it was actually kind of sunny on it. But it was kind of getting really pixelated, so it's hard to see. It wouldn't be a good thing to put up on the screen for everybody. But some of these are kind of getting pixelated here, unfortunately. So. I'm looking at the camera behind the scenes, but kind of goes to show you we have sun, and then a few minutes later we have potential for severe weather. It's not what you generally expect here in Florida. Okay, this camera shows some wet conditions here on the road, some volatile weather. Let's go ahead and pull it up. This is going to be I-95 southbound to mile marker 280 there, looking southeast. And you can see how the conditions here to reduce visibility really tell the story here. Those conditions, you know, really nasty for sure. You see how it's hazy out there, folks, you know, kind of, there's a pixelation, but at least you got an idea of what's going on there. Definitely folks taking it very slow as they should in these inclement conditions. So, again, that's kind of a situation there. Let's go back to Putnam over there now because we had an update. I have a feeling they added a tornado possible, but let me see. Nope, they have not. Okay. So they still are keeping this here as a severe thunderstorm warning without a tornado possible tag. But at 3:07, a severe thunderstorm was located in Hollister or near Palaca, moving southeast at 15 miles an hour. Palaca, East Palaca, Hollister, Satsuma, San Mateo, Willaca, and Caraway. Here as we're looking, as we're tracking things, that latest scan just updating, it looks like more one direction wind on that. But it's not, you know, the way it's set up, it's not far off from having two different directions here with the wind, you know, in that, if some of this green that you were seeing here were to start getting brighter, then all of a sudden we have an issue on our hands. But this is, it is wrapping up in a way, but it didn't look like strong rotation per se. But this is kind of dipping, you know, these times are having a tendency to, okay, that's tidying it up now. Let's see the time frames. Okay, that's a minute ahead. Again, this is a weird storm. Maybe weirder than the Flagler one. So this is 1 minute ahead. So the reflectivity will be back here. So it's still kind of out ahead on that latest scan. But this is southwest of Palaca. The thing is, if you have the green and the red here, and this is only about 4,500 feet up, if you have that back where it's more co-located, so the radar's a little behind. That's just if they matched up better, what that would indicate is you have the parameters here with the storm axis more together, meaning sometimes this would indicate the rotations aloft are not really trying to get down to the surface, but if you had them right together, then that would indicate, because generally when you have the green and red like this around here, not always, but you know, sometimes you have a boundary or something, and not the case. But a lot of times you need a green and red like this. That's, you know, saying, oh, you need a tornado warning for sure. But the thing about it is, it's a little displaced here. I know. Let me check another angle. I want to make sure we're not getting any type of. Sometimes the different angles can offer like contamination here. Yeah, there's a lot weaker, but still there, rotation and putting them off the Melbourne side. That's, you know, getting pretty far away though. Check the Tampa side. That looks like a, you know, nasty storm. So in that case, you think the severe thunderstorm warning make more sense. The Moody radar there is showing some spin, but it looks more like a hail producer when you look at it like that. Again, you know, now as we're looking, I don't know how favorable the environment really would be for hail, but they're saying only 3/4 of an inch. I would probably go like an inch here on this because of what I'm seeing from the different radar sites. Our radar is going on just a little over 3/4 if I switch it over. Now that says over an inch, it overestimates, but the one that doesn't overestimate here generally is showing 0.79 on the hail. So I think I would go an inch. I just updated it again. Okay. Okay, they added a tornado possible tag now. Okay, so at 3:12, a severe thunderstorm was located near Hollister or near Palaca, moving southeast at 15 miles an hour. Palaca, East Palaca, Satsuma, San Mateo, Hollister, and Willaca were watching this, and they already had a tornado warning in Flagler. That's why we jumped on. That's what the description is about, because I see the rotation over the last hour there. Latest on that says that's breaking up. But this one here has some spin, and we'll watch the rotational path. You see how that was heading more east, but now it's starting to tighten up and dip more south. Again, severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Putnam until 3:30, but there's a tornado possible tag on it now, like what I was talking about might happen. You know, at 3:12, a severe thunderstorm is located near Hollister or near Palaca, moving southeast at 15 miles an hour. 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, penny-size hail. Palaca, East Palaca, Satsuma, San Mateo, Hollister, and Willaca. Again, we're looking at that very carefully. If this were to tighten up, a tornado warning would then be required here. In terms of not just the green and red tightening up, but it's becoming more co-located. Again, that's not something we deal with around here that much. Sometimes, with the boundaries on, a sea breeze, we can have that here, or sometimes in the front you'll get it because you'll see some green and red, or it's not really, together. So again, I know, just trying to give you guys the very latest here, looking through things in the Weather Center. Again, we have this severe thunderstorm, warning. We had a tornado warning though earlier in toward parts of Flagler that we jumped on for. I know, we're watching some folks watching on different platforms. We're watching that, rotation right now southwest of Palaca. Here we have that C-shape here on this, and then you have some green and red. This is south of Lundy. Moving toward US 17 here. Just trying to check to see if it's co-located, because that's what's precluding a tornado warning for now. But if you can get the center to spin here, if you get that more underneath the reflectivity, then that's when you would need a tornado warning. They're not quite matching up, meaning this is, a situation where it may not be getting down to the surface here, this rotation. Excuse me. But again, we're continuing to watch. We're continuing to track. We've been on for a little while now. Again, I don't want to let it go yet, because this may very well get a tornado warning here in Putnam. Probably about 50-50 right now if it gets a tornado warning here before it, eventually, it's not a factor anymore in our area. It may never actually, I'm just trying to look at the angle on this. It may stay in the area the whole time. We thought the other one might, but it ended up kind of getting out of the area. It looks like it's a little bit of wind there right around I-95 and very far northwestern of Volusia there, the other storm where it did have the tornado warning. Again, we're watching this here round and southwest of Lundy. Again, here in Putnam County. Again, tracking this very carefully. I know Labor Day weekend, some folks may be trying to start it early, and this weather is definitely having an impact. So again, we're just continuing to give you guys the very latest here on what we're dealing with, on what we're tracking. Just trying to keep you informed. Okay, this one with a tornado warning. This is what I was concerned about here. They've just gone with a tornado warning now. So there's your red box, guys. We've now a tornado warning until 4 o'clock. So again, a tornado warning till 4 p.m. At 3:16, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located near Satsuma or near Palaca, moving southeast at 20 miles an hour. Palaca and Satsuma, it's in that area now, give or take. San Mateo in about 10 to 15 minutes. Pomona Park about 3:35 west of Lake Como, and Willaca under this here. So we have a tornado warning now at 4 o'clock for parts of Putnam County. Again, we need to get folks into shelter here, interior room, away from windows. I know right in Palaca you have some nasty weather coming in, but the worst is just kind of, more toward Lundy. As we're looking at things, maybe you might call it the south side of Palaca, Roy, but, right there, Lundy to the south side of Palaca, not far from even Satsuma. Again, we now have another tornado warning in our viewing area here. This is technically more in the Jacksonville TV market to start out. I know Flagler's it's the Orlando market, but Jacksonville stations sometimes cover it, but this is all into Jacksonville, and you see that hook, this update. That hook there, tightening up. You see that C-shape here south of Lundy. Again, we need to get folks into shelter here. The velocity is just a little behind, but I feel like it's getting more together here. It's behind, and that images are behind, but the way that hooked on it there, that concerns me that we may be getting ready to have a tornado touch down here southwest of Palaca, Roy. as we're looking toward the Lundy community. So, moving southeast at 20 miles an hour. And it still looks like it's just a little bit ahead on here, the velocity. Because I updated, information has come in now. Times are, right there. And really, you would expect the green and red to be just a little behind, but it's too close here. We're far enough from the radar. You can't take chances with that type of hook. And we have a tornado warning now for parts of Putnam and Flagler until 4 o'clock here. Again, more about Putnam on this one, though. Not much of Flagler, just a small sliver of northwest Flagler in here. For the southeastern and really even central Putnam until 4 p.m. So we have a potential tornado here in the north parts of Putnam County. Again, we need to get in that interior room away from windows immediately here. Again, a potential tornado here right now in the north parts of Putnam County. Again, you want to have that football, baseball helmet ready at least. If you don't want to just put it on straight out, I understand you wouldn't want to maybe keep it on the whole time. Just have it ready to put on if you hear that freight train noise. As we're tracking things here, have those shoes on in case, that tornado does happen. You don't want to cut your feet up as you're trying to get out of a damaged building here, with that, broken glass, something like that there around. So again, we have a tornado warning here in the north parts of Putnam County until about 4 o'clock here. We have this hook echo on the Doppler radar, that C-safe there. That's not what we want to see, obviously. That indicates spin, atmospheric spin, and, that's trying to reach the surface here in the north parts of Putnam County. Again, we have a tornado warning here for parts of Putnam County until 4 o'clock. So again, this is an odd situation here. This is our second discrete storm of the day to prompt a tornado warning. This does not happen around here very often. As we're tracking things here. The last time we had anything quite this bizarre, and that was even more bizarre 18 months ago, is when we had the hail that day here back in February last year, with things, popping on up. I mean, that was something where we didn't just have 2 tornado warnings. We had, a slew. It had to have been more than a dozen tornado warnings. We had a marginal risk, and this isn't, as crazy as that day. But still, it is kind of bizarre. We haven't had that much confirmation. We were getting confirmation left and right. That was a historic day there. That I believe it's February 4th there last year, 2024. But as we're tracking things here, it's not quite that bizarre, but it still is bizarre in some ways here. As we're tracking things. Let me go ahead and zoom back out a little. We have these storms that are all by themselves. Let me just go ahead and take the tornado warning off. I got to investigate some of these live on the air here. Let's see if this is rotating here northwest of Alachua and Alachua County. Not really seeing it there. That's good, thankfully. How about this one? That has a little bit of a hook northwest of McClenny. Nothing really there. So maybe not quite in the right spot to rotate. We're not quite on the boundary. Maybe not with as much of the parameter. That's the thing. This axis to the south is on, the line there. That causes things to spin here because we're getting wind switching in different directions. So it seems to be the cause, as I'm looking at this on the fly here, it would seem to be the cause here, the boundary causing the winds to go in opposing directions, and then the storms developing on it here by themselves. I'm just looking here, don't see much else. That's good, but if these were to get on that, as it kind of switches around, then that could be a problem here later on. We'll see. But the storm is a problem. Putnam that weakened on the latest scan. So back it up. I was looking a little bit tighter in that latest scan. It kind of weakened there. But we're looking north of Satsuma, right between Satsuma and Lundy there, and toward part of Putnam County. Again, a tornado warning in effect right now until 4 p.m. Again, we're continuing to follow this. We're always on for any tornado warning storms here within the 62 counties. Again, a potential tornado in the ward parts of Putnam County this afternoon. So, again, it's really important to take those tornado precautions. interior room away from windows here. Again, we had that red box, and this one the yellow. That was a severe thunderstorm warning that preceded the tornado warning there. We had the storm out here with a tornado warning earlier on. That's moving in toward Volusia County there now, out of our area. Not warned at this point, but let's look at the storm near Crescent City. It's, by itself here, not much rotation. That's good. We'll keep watching though. But we're continuing to give you guys the very latest here. Again, this tornado warning in effect until 4 p.m. We're looking here between Lundy and Satsuma. Again, we have a tornado warning in effect right now until 4 p.m. I know we are expecting rain chances to go up, dramatically toward the weekend here. This right here, what we're dealing with right now, well, I mean, it's something we have stuff more discreet, so it allows things to be a little bit more dangerous in the isolated areas versus, when we have the action all put together here, it'll be harder for one storm to pop out. I mean, we only had a 40% chance of rain today, and that's probably about what we're seeing in terms of storm coverage here, maybe even less than that, really, when you look at our 62 counties. We have had 2 tornado warnings, so you just never know here as we're tracking things. I have 60% chance tomorrow, 70% Saturday, Sunday, and then Labor Day, 60% in that last forecast I did there. Our formal update late Tuesday, so a lot higher rain chances. Gonna have problems maybe for the area high school and college football games. But right now, we're just having problems during the, course of that school day, that work day here. Maybe football practice even for some. With these tornado warnings popping up. So this is our second different discrete storm here this afternoon with some tornadic potential. So we had the one down here that prompted it earlier on. Now we have this. Let me check our power outage maps here real quick. Our power outage U.S. maps here. Let me go ahead and see what we might have. So we have a few thousand out in the state of Florida. Flagler County, 584 customers in the dark. So, gotta wonder if there was some type of a tornadic damage. It could have just been from the storm itself, with the wind or the lightning or really tiny hail might have caused something. But it's a situation here where, 584 customers in the dark in Flagler County right now. Again, not overwhelming, but indicative that there was a little something there. 29 customers in the dark where we're looking at Putnam, but that's something that's still going to, update here on us as we look ahead in real time because it's a situation here where, it's still happening. So we're going to get it added to the total here, the, potential outages, those outage reports will still trickle in, and then the number will go up accordingly as the reports come into the Weather Center. So let's look at this. This looks weaker now. That's good. But at 3:25, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located over Satsuma near Palatka, moving southeast at 15 miles an hour. So we're still watching this. We're still tracking this here. You have Lake Como, you have Palatka, you have Satsuma, San Mateo, Pomona Park there under this. So that looks like it's becoming more linear. Which, if that continues, that trend continues, we may get this tornado warning dropped early. That's what we want to see. And then we're going to wrap it up. But we're not there at this point yet. As we're looking and as we're tracking. Very quickly here, I do want to just kind of go to another vantage point on things here. This is a very broad one, obviously. So you don't even see, a lot of our area under a thunderstorm risk for today. And yeah, we have a tornado warning here for parts of Flagler and Putnam. Again, this doesn't happen very much, but then you see out toward northeast Texas there is a slight risk of severe weather now. Could have a situation out there where they have some damaging winds or even a brief tornado. And again, we didn't have a risk of any of that formally here today here in our area. But that's just how things happen sometimes. You see a flash flood warning. They've had substantial rain around Little Rock today. So there's about a half foot of rain last 12 hours. That's the storyline there. As we're tracking things, they've had multiple flash flood warnings out there. But as we bring it back home now toward our coverage area in this tornado warning in parts of Putnam and Flagler here. Again, I think this spin is weakening some because it's becoming more linear It shows on the rotation tracker how we had some reds and some brighter yellows. Now it's a very dim yellow, so this tornado warning may not last all that much longer if the trends continue here. That's what we'd like to see, obviously. The severe thunderstorm warning set to go away at 3:30, and we may end up, I would not be surprised here if we get both of these off the board here. The warning within 2 minutes, but not have any warnings on the board within 10 minutes here. I think there's a decent chance that happens, and then we'll wrap it up, assuming we don't have anything else pop up. Nothing else looks, crazy right now. A little light in Southern Clay and Northern Putnam, but we're not seeing much. I'm just looking to see the rotation on any of these other ones, and not so much. This really is weakening. Don't let your guard down. There's still some dangerous lightning, some very heavy downpours here south of Palaca. We're far enough from the radar. You can't take chances until they drop this tornado warning here, and then the severe thunderstorm warning will go away first here, assuming they don't reissue on that, because that is going away in 1 minute anyway. But tornado warning goes technically to 4, but I would be surprised if it continues that much longer. US 17 is about where this would be tracking, though. As we're tracking things again, it's really losing its structure here. But the reason, there's multiple, because we have the boundary, but then the discrete axis, I think we just lost a tornado warning. Okay. I think we just got that tornado warning to go away. And then we'll get the severe thunderstorm warning to go away in a second. So if that continues the trend, what I'm seeing, the yellow boxes went off too. So I think they dropped both of them, which means we can wrap it up soon. But let me just go ahead and go over my point here real quick. As we're tracking things here in the Weather Center, you can see the discrete nature of the areas here on the infrared satellite. That's something you don't see very often around here. And you get tornado warning visible, so there's a little bit more cloud cover, like the cold cloud tops in these couple areas here. So you don't know water vapor as well. So kind of interesting to look at there from that meteorological perspective. And again, you've had the opposing winds here because of the boundary. Boundary that's going to be causing us more moisture here, and issues for the weekend. But it'll be, we're expecting more coverage of storms, which would limit the severe. Maybe you get thunderstorm warnings, but it would definitely limit the tornado potential. This is really surprising what we just had here over the last hour. But it is warm. We had a boundary. This is something maybe you would expect more in like October than what you would expect here right now. But you would expect more of a temperature contrast too. So there's some give and takes here for sure. So as we're tracking, you can kind of see here, the temperature story. And then let me go ahead and go back to reflectivity on the radar. Again, you see how warm it is, though. The instability there, but supersonic composite has been there. It's starting to slip south some now toward East Central Florida. So that's a positive trend. I know we're gonna have a formal update here late tonight, so make sure you guys tune in for that here as we're tracking things here. Make sure you tune in. We'll have an update. I have this graphic in here. I'm just going to throw it on up real quick. This is the college football forecast in terms of the weather expectations as we're looking here for that Saturday in Tallahassee. It's about, really running that poncho because we could have the rain around, but if we have the lightning around, then there'll be a delay. The first game, in the renovated stadium there, per se, the fully renovated stadium. And it's against Alabama, a tough one for the nose, and we're expecting weather problems, weather concern. Maybe they'll get lucky there. There's, a chance. 25% of this will get updated here for a formal update late tonight here. But there's a chance at least as we're tracking things here that things, are not as, nasty in a spot or two here and there. So maybe we'll get lucky, but I know the Florida game, they're playing Saturday night. Weather could be an issue. High school games, weather could be an issue. Probably some of the games will do, better than others. May not have a problem, but some, likely will have issues here. So, with the weather. So we got to be very vigilant. Whatever thunder roars, go indoors, obviously. As we're tracking things here. Definitely important to keep in mind. It's a situation here. At least we're not dealing with, a hurricane or something like that here, like what we've dealt with so many times here lately. Looking back, I debuted this graphic late Tuesday here, the worst tropical cyclone by county since 1950. This is a very, tricky graphic to put together here. It took a lot of time, a lot of research, because, we don't have a day on here because of everything that happened, last year with Helene. It went up to pretty much, as bad as the Dahlia was, and in the '04 season, not, on here, but the Dahlia's anniversary coming up here, as we're looking ahead in the days to come. I know we're at some key ones right now, like Katrina and Andrew. We've been around here this week, nationally, but Dahlia locally, that 2-year anniversary coming up. Helene's 1-year anniversary is later next month. And you see this Dora, that's a storm here that hit in 64 here around the peak of the season, just like Irma around the peak of the season in 2017. So we still have a lot of season left to watch and monitor things. But at least right now we're not having to watch anything too carefully in the tropics here in the short term. There is something further out we'll watch, for the longer term, just around the coast of Africa there. But right now, nothing, imminent concern in the tropics, and we will take that, obviously. So that's kind of a storyline there as we're tracking things. Again, okay, we got a report of some damage now in Putnam. Makes you wonder if we had a tornado then. This is a report of thunderstorm wind damage. Multiple trees and power lines were down near Karen Lane and Florida 19 southwest of Palatka. That's around 317. Let me put our rotation tracker on. Yeah, matches up almost perfectly with that if it wasn't, from a tornado, maybe straight line winds. That's what they're calling it initially, but it could have been a tornado there on 317. Multiple trees and power lines down near Karen Lane and Florida 19 southwest of Palatka. So that's kind of a storyline there as we're tracking. Let me go ahead and pull things back on in here. On the other mode here, things look a lot tamer down here now. A little bit of increase in far northern Putnam, southern Clay, but nothing overwhelming with that here as we're tracking things. So that is some good news. I know the tornado warning, what they said about it when they dropped that warning. Of course, severe thunderstorm warning was set to expire at 3:30 anyway, but tornado warning was going to go to 4. But at 3:29, they said the storm, which prompted the warning, has weakened below severe limits and no longer appears to be capable of producing a tornado. Therefore, the warning has been canceled. So that's what we like to see, obviously. I know the tornado warning came out at 3:16. There may have been some damage, maybe tornado damage, I don't know yet, around 3:17 there, but we were watching that beforehand. Haven't heard of, I know we had some power outages in Flagler, but haven't heard of, direct reports of damage. Just some hail, may have had damage there, don't know yet, but this is a direct report of damage there. Multiple trees, as I put on that little icon there, the red square. Multiple trees and power lines down near Karen Lane and Florida 19 southwest of Palatka around 3:17 this afternoon. You see the rotational path. You saw how there wasn't much left, but you had to spin here. This is, not far from Lundy there, but 4 miles southwest of Palatka. We might have had something tornadic. If not that, it was the wind, just a straight line wind maybe. But let me go back on velocity there too. I'll back that up. It really weak and quick, of course. But so yeah, might have been before 3:17, quite honestly. As I'm looking here, and then it may have been when we still had the severe thunderstorm warning and not a tornado warning. And if it wasn't cold, okay, maybe it just was straight line winds. That's what they're saying right now, but it would, based on how much it is, there may be enough, evidence of something that the survey would be needed and then the classification would be made. But this is 310 on radar, and it already passed that roadway at 314. But they're saying it happened around 317, so maybe on the back side, but I would kind of think it was more closer to like 314 or something. But we shall see. A lot weaker now. That's the good news. We're giving the heads up anyway. There was a severe thunderstorm warning, at least in play at the time, giving folks a heads up, as well, on the more regional type of level. Watching some stuff there north of DeLand. That's not our area, and I promise I'm about to wrap it on up. But we have a little rotation there, maybe north of DeLand. Again, that is not in our area. I think the Melbourne radar is down now, which is not ideal. But We do have something north of the land we'll have to look at meteorologically, not in our covered area, but that's something those folks will be monitoring down there. Radar's getting cut off there, so it's making it tricky. It may not be that much, but a little bit of something to watch in Volusia County there with some of these discrete storms, with the boundary interaction. Talking about the, frontal boundary interaction, not just the normal type of boundary interaction that you would get on a typical summer day. But again, we're going to keep watching. We're going to keep tracking. If we need to jump back in, we will. Again, we'll pop back in here if it's needed, but otherwise we'll have that full update late tonight here as we're, giving you guys that information, those, weekend plans. As more storm coverage comes into play, more convection happens. Some of those football games might have problems, not necessarily from a tornadic scenario, but maybe, some stronger storms and or just some, lightning and rain as we're looking ahead here in the days to come. I know no formal risk here, severe weather ahead. Even today there wasn't, but obviously we had 3 warnings there on the board that we were tracking, 2 tornado warnings, 1 severe thunderstorm warning. Again, you can follow me on all the different platforms, obviously. When we're, in the middle of coverage, if you maybe missed a word I said and want to back things up, YouTube's a place where you can do that. I mean, I'm only able to do that on all the platforms, but YouTube there at Clouds Weather, I know that's also, I know Facebook's kind of changing the way they archive some videos on YouTube. You can watch, old coverage on there, go back, years, and watch under the live tab, old severe weather coverage, old coverage of hurricanes that I've done. We've had so many years now that you can watch a lot of that there, because there's been so much, unfortunately, that's had to be done there. But over on YouTube, and we just had the 5-year anniversary of Hurricane Laura in Louisiana. That coverage will be on there even as well. Dahlia, Helene, I could go on and on. But that's on YouTube there. You have Twitter at Cloud Casey. You have Facebook there, Casey Cloud WX and Cloud Weather. You have Twitch there, Cloud Weather. Cloudweather.com, and the interactive radar's on there as well, so you can keep an eye on these storms. And if there's any more concern here, especially if there's a tornado warning, popping up anywhere in the 62 county area, we will jump back in here immediately. It's all about protecting you, your friends, your family. If there's any more tornado warnings, they'll be back on immediately. Severe thunderstorm warnings will play by ear, obviously. This is the same with flash flood warnings, but we'll at least be posting those on Facebook and Twitter, if not, jumping in based on what we're seeing with those areas of interest. Try to enjoy the rest of your day. I know college football trying to get going here. Games down to Orlando and Tampa. Hopefully the weather will, hold, off and hold together and not be an issue, not be a hindrance for those. But we'll have to watch. I would say Orlando's probably a little bit more precarious spot. Tampa has the much bigger game, really, from the national perspective, But we'll have to just kind of watch there because both could have some impacts. Orlando, though, UCF's game, they're in a little bit more of a spot where it could be, but the models, they're sending in that, that could be an issue, but the models have not handled this all that well in some ways here. So we'll keep you guys advised. For now, try to enjoy that Thursday.